As the floor is open.
It would have been a good, would have been a good joke 10 days ago.
Correct.
Jake, I guess after losing so badly in a final like that, there are two ways a team can take it. They can allow it to dent their confidence and maybe get a bit negative, or they can say, right, there's the bar, there's the standard, we're going to work even harder. How have the players responded this week, I guess?
Yeah, Ken, you're 100% right. I mean, one of the fear factors of you going to your shell and I suppose you feel a little bit of that damage. What happened on the weekend? We weren't good. I mean, we all admitted it. I've said it. We were, whatever reasons, and there were a lot of reasons. And obviously, there's not excuses, there are reasons, and we've got to make sure that we don't get caught like that again. And we've got to bounce back. I mean, we still seen as one of the top sides in South Africa. We're still seen as the current champions of the Currie Cup. So there's a massive amount of motivation as well from our point of view. Um, yeah, and you're right. I mean, there are two ways, but the only way you're going to find that out, Kenny, is when we start running out and playing. That is the true test of what we're going to be like as a group. So trained well, but then again, to be fair, we've just flown back around the world, economy class, and again, I stress over and over, it's not excuses, but it's like, you would imagine you've been in sport your whole life, Ken. A guy lives in a hotel in a single bed an hour away from the golf course. Another guy lives on the golf course in a double bed with with 3 meals a day. The other guy doesn't get, has to cook his own meals in a bed and breakfast on a single bed. I mean, it's not conducive to top league sport. And, the way it turned out, we left Durban, we flew to Joburg, we went to Joburg, we had to get visas. Then we had a COVID test and make sure everyone was good enough to get on the plane. And that is enough angst in itself. Then you get there and you test as you get to Italy to see that you haven't got any of the COVID virus going into the country. Then you test again on the Friday to make sure you can fly home, but also make sure you can take part in the game. And again, as I said, I stress, it's not an excuse. It's just something that's completely different to what we used to. You get a Northern Hemisphere referee. You get, an Italian side that's had 3 weeks off to prepare. You get an Italian side, and I know people will look down at the Italian side, but with international players who played England twice, Scotland twice, Wales twice this year in the Autumn Cup in the Six Nations, you take that experience and you put that into a team. I'm hoping that what we learned last Saturday from an intensity point of view, from a crowd point of view, from a preparation point of view, that we can go a step up against the Pumas this weekend. Because they also on a high. They got 5 points against the Lions. So it's a great test for us. I mean, it's a great opportunity for us, like you say, to see where we are. And there's no better way than performing on a game, at home.
Jake, on Simpiwe Matanzima and Sydney Tobias. Tanzima, the only guy that's left of last week. You happy with their progress and happy with the depth and happy with their development?
Simon, I must say I'm really happy and I'm really proud of them to get a bonus point against the province side, that have got many, super rugby players, or the equivalent of, that standard of player playing for them. We basically, again, probably had 10 days to prepare. All the COVID testing, lost 1 or 2 guys along the way that were in close contact, which again affects the makeup of that team. And you saw the game, Simon. I mean, I thought they tried really hard. The one area they struggled was to stop them all, and that's generally when you don't have cohesion and a lot of time to spend together. So, yeah, I mean, Matanzima, it's not just because he played last week. He's been, a very good player for this union for a long time, Simon. He's now come back from an Achilles injury. He's played, I think, 2 or 3 club games, and then he obviously got a start in that game. So, we were always going to put him back into our mix, and it gets a chance now to play with, some of the players who've obviously played a lot more rugby than him. So, yeah, in summary, very happy with where we are. I mean, obviously we're busy with some signings on strengthening our squad. You would imagine that after seeing that the kind of competition we're going to get in the Northern Hemisphere, we're going to have to, obviously get a stronger squad in certain areas. And I'm very happy that what we learned there is we're in the process with Edgar, obviously my CEO, now trying to get some players to make our squad stronger in the areas we think we still need to get stronger in.
Jake, some of the changes you made, the guys who are missing out are
sort of stalwarts in your team who've played a lot of rugby. So I imagine there's to do with that. But also the guys coming in offer you something a bit different. Daryl Foster, obviously new signing, and Hugh Upland as well at the back.
Yeah, Ashfaq, I mean, I've said it from day one. I mean, Gio is unbelievably important to us. I mean, you see the try-saving tackle he made against the Sharks. He just come back from, a 7-month knee injury. So he needed a little bit of confidence off the bench last week in a massive game. And I say massive game, when he came on, the game was probably gone. And then the 3 or 4 touches he had were phenomenal. For a guy who hasn't played rugby for 7-8 months, it's phenomenal. I know what he adds. I mean, I know what he, not only on the field, I know how much work he puts into guys like Stravino and Madosh. And it's like having a coach there. It's like having a senior coach at the back there. And I'm sure his influence will be fantastic. And then, the other guys that, Grobbies has played a lot of rugby. You've got Skalk Erasmus, who was, when we first played our very first game, he was the hooker against the Sharks in that Super Saturday. Played really well. In fact, I think he got picked then to go to the green and gold squad and got injured. So, yeah, I mean, it's nice for us. We can check a little bit of our depth. We get Harold Foster back. I mean, yes, he's been a phenomenal player for the Lions. Can't wait to play. And I'm hoping that him and Gio will just spark a little bit of extra something, because we were flat. We were flat last week. We were probably a little bit reluctant to play, and I'm hoping that those two are the catalyst for us to get our game back to the way we want it to be.
Jake, you spoke after the final about the kicking game as well. You probably didn't get enough territory. Up and unders probably didn't go according to plan. In terms of that, what would you want to see different? Or do you think that perhaps holding on to position, not necessarily going wide, but up the middle as well,
Yeah.
that has given you a lot of success last season?
Yeah, I expect the one thing that I was really disappointed about, and I told the players, it's not like I'm now running the players in at all. I mean, it was something we were in some ways outcoached. A lot of ways, a lot of things that the Benetton side did, they didn't do previously. So they brought in some sort of tweaks to their game, and we probably. Even at 8-all, we had to work hard to get to 8-all, and then we got the ball on the halfway line. It was almost like we didn't want to fire a shot. We wanted to put the pressure back on them. And I just think having Gio and Harold this week now is maybe as I said, maybe those are the two players I need that will have a go, and not feel the pressure. Because again, I've said it many times, it's now where we are as a group. But David Creel's a youngster, Stravino's a youngster, Grovzi's a youngster, Morne Smith's a youngster, Ruan Nokia is a youngster. We all know how great they are as good players and what they've done in a year. But gee, we got some young players. And I think when they saw the intensity and the difference that of playing against international players and playing against wingers that take you on, they come and they have a go at you. They don't just necessarily run into touch or will go softly into contact. They just realize it's a different level. So, in fact, to answer your question, I want us to play. I don't want us to get scared now. This is the second game in a long competition. We're not going to lose or win the competition on Friday night's results. There's a long way to go. We're getting lots and lots of good players back in a couple of weeks' time. Guys who got injuries: Sintu Manjezi, Ulrich Low, Anu Botha, Jacques Duplessis, Johan Goosen. All those players come into our squad at the back end of a competition, then we're going to be looking strong. So I don't want them to go now and feel like the whole world's on their shoulders. We had a bad outing, Ashfaq, last week, and again, we take it on the chin. But the reality is it's a long competition, and it's another Currie Cup campaign, and there's many, many games that can happen that you can still control, what's going to happen. So I want them to have a go.
Like, just without lambasting an issue, a national versus local issue, I don't know if you're privy to what Jacques Nienaber said last week regarding the effect of your level of players, in other words, where you play as a franchise, and how what evidently happened with the Bulls, and how that influences the national players. Now, I'm a little bit in the dark as far as that is concerned. I don't know, for the benefit of Jacques, this is basically just what he said, and I don't want to paraphrase too much. But the gist of the story, the way that I understand, is very little, if anything, that happens on the level that you guys play has an effect on the national team and its performance. Now, like I said, without putting Jock into a position where he hasn't clarified that and you
Yes.
don't have the benefit of explanation, could you
Yes.
please put a little bit of more light on that? Because I'm in the dark.
Yeah, Simon, I think what's important is that you don't see me now saying, yeah, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, the reality is, I'm sure that with all the players he has now to his disposal, and you look at the Dupree brothers and Jasper Wiese and Eben Etzebeth and Moss and Malcolm Marks, and the list goes on and on and on. De Allende, Ergesnam, and I know they're injured, and I know they're obviously 50-50 for the tour, but if you look at Cheslin Colby, and a lot of that team are playing internationally and are playing overseas. And a lot of those players have had the intensity of what we got last week. So in Jacques' defense, he's probably right. To take a young club team like we did, and I say young, not age-wise, young in terms of time together, take them on an economy class flight across, after we've flown from Durban, and again, all those things added up, then it doesn't really have a significance on how your national team's going to do. He's quite right. Is that they get to pick the best players. They get to pick players that they can have in a camp for 6 weeks. And quite rightly so. I mean, I've said it since I was the national coach. What they've done now is right. Every interest that they've done or every decision they make, Simon, is in the best interest of the national team. And it must be like that. It's been like that in the All Blacks. That's why they've been so successful. So to clarify what I think what he means, and not what I think, what I know he means, having sat there in his chair, is we don't want to read into what happens to a club side. He would love us to win, but by his own admission, him and Rassie and Currie have said to me, listen, we needed that game. We needed to play for the television rights. We needed to promote the Rainbow Cup. We needed that week to promote the fact that we're going to be in the United Rugby Championships. We needed as a country to hype up South Africa before the Lion Series. There's a much bigger picture. And he's right. The loss or the style or the manner in which we played is not really affecting the national setup. In some ways it might motivate them. It might motivate them to understand that, that it is going to be a different game. It's done it to us, Simon. I mean, I can tell you now, I can't wait for us to play tomorrow night because I want to see whether or not whatever we learned in Italy, whatever it was, whether we can translate that into our game. And I'm sure the Springboks are exactly the same. He's got, as I said, without labouring the point, he's got lots of experience of guys who've played in Japan and England and France. And when he puts that all together with all the good players that have stayed in South Africa, who might be, just like we were, a little bit gun-shy in terms of the tempo and the intensity and they might be helped by all those other players like the Eben Etzebeths and the Lua de Jagers and the Kuni Oosthuizens, and I mean I'm just thinking on the top of my head all the international players or South African players who've been playing abroad. So yeah, I didn't think anything bad about it. He's 100% right. I think that the national cause is an incredible position. The national cause is paramount for South African rugby, and it should be like that. I mean, 6-week camps and having the best players and being able to keep their best players and prepare for a series that everyone waits for 12 years, Simon, is the way it should be if you want to be a rugby playing nation.
Like, not at this moment, not everyone is convinced about Chris Smith and especially his decision making under pressure.
Yeah.
He had a few chances and we struggled a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about FC Du Plessis. What can you tell us about him, and will he maybe get more play time in this Currie Cup going ahead?
Chris, one thing you would know, and because you've been in rugby a long time, and all the journalists here, is there's one job harder than being a coach, is when you get a number 10 jersey. No matter what team you're in. Because if you don't win, then the general didn't play well. And if you win, then the general is the king of the castle. I mean, I always used to tell Butch James when I gave him the Springbok jersey, I said, thank God you're number 10 and I give it to you because you're going to get more flack than me this weekend. And that's what's happening in South Africa. Whether it's the 10 from Stormers doesn't play well, then they need to change him. It's the 10 from the Sharks doesn't play well, then they need to find someone else. So, I'm fully aware Chris isn't maybe as where we want him to be, but he's only going to learn. He's 26 years old. He's had some great games. He's won some great games for us. There was a pressure cooker situation there. I can tell you, having played in front of 2,000 supporters in Italy, sounded like we played in front of 50,000 people. It was crazy there, and it was a different pressure. And yeah, and he knows. I mean, he was down on himself after the game, but I've been there. I mean, I've been there, and I've had guys like Franz Steyn that have felt bad after a game, or Butch James. So to answer your question, Chris, I think it's tough for a 10. We just got to keep persisting. I'm not gonna chuck the baby out with the bathwater now. We're gonna get him right. And we got Johan Goosen, and hopefully Morné Steyn comes back after his national duties, and then we'll have 3 great fly halves. And then when it comes to FCA, all I can tell you, he's got it. He's got it. He's at school 2 years ago. I mean, you go look at his highlights package. He's got maturity. He's quick. He's got a lot to learn. But again, the only way you learn is if I give him opportunities and I let him play, and I let him play with guys like Harold and Cornell and Ivan van Sale and those guys. So, he's literally still under 20s. So from next year, if he gets a lot of game time now, and I think the nice thing about him, Chris, without jumping around, is he can play in a couple of different positions. So he also is a good foil for us, because we can play him. He played wing for Toulon. He can play fullback. He can play centre. And not that I want to move him around. I want him to grow as a 10. But the only way you're going to do that is if he plays in the comfort and the company of all those good players that we have now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But I really want to stress, I think number 10 in this country. I remember years ago I got an email from Johan Rupert, and you guys would have seen it, But how many times did we go Brahm van Staten 1 test, then out, then Louis Kuhn 1 test, then Joel Stransky 2 tests, and then Henry Honeyball 1 test, and then Henry Honeyball 3 tests, and then Louis Kuhn again, and then Derek Hougaard, and then we've never really been able to stick to a fly. So my learnings as a coach, and I'm not knocking what happened before, is the guy has to play. Dan Carter played 12, Johnny Wilkinson 10. Johnny Wilkinson played 10. And the way you're going to learn is if you leave guys there to really grow and make mistakes, but learn at the same time. So, I mean, I'm fully confident that Chris will be good tomorrow.
Jake, firstly, welcome back to South Africa. During media stuff with John Dobson and Cash, the question was asked, do you think that the South African franchises, or clubs as we call them now, is up to the challenge that the British and Irish Lions will present? Dobbo said he doesn't think so, and Cash said that they'll use altitude and 1 or 2 other things to compete with the Lions. What's your opinion?
Carl, I'm going to say I've been lucky enough to coach against the British and Irish Lions. And when you play international players, we saw this weekend, we played international players that played for Italy. It doesn't matter which country you play for. When you play international rugby week in and week out, and you're under that pressure cooker situation, you learn lots about rugby. I mean, I'm not giving you guys a rugby lesson, but the only difference between school and club and senior rugby and test rugby is time and space. That's the only difference. Skill levels, because you get less time and you get less space, your skill levels and your reaction time has to be quicker. I suppose like a cricket player who faces a bowler who bowls 80 miles an hour, and then you face one who bowls 100 miles an hour. There's a massive difference. Your time and understanding is much less. So I want to answer by saying to you, we mustn't be, I'm fully aware of the fact that the Lions are coming with Itoji, and they're coming with Alan Wynne-Jones, and they're coming with Sinclair and Owen Farrell, and those guys are seasoned test players. And we've probably, as a country, we've been fortunate that we haven't been able to test ourselves with international opposition. And look, we might surprise, we might be. But I think we need to be realistic about it. We need to understand you're playing against some of the best players in the world from a provincial point of view. And that's the exciting part. Having coached the Brumbies, we beat the Lions team with the Brumbies team that had no Wallabies. So it can be done, and it's not impossible. But I think one has to be a realistic call. It's you're playing against, and especially the week we play them. I can't speak for the other teams. But, knowing rugby like I think I know it, 2 weeks before the first test, you get the Lions team. I would think that we're probably going to be on the receiving end of playing their best team, so that they can then ring fence their test side for 2 weeks to prepare for the first test match. So, I can only control what I can control, and I'm under the impression that Warren Gatlin will pick his strongest side against the Bulls. Two reasons. One is the Bulls have been the top team for a while now, and secondly, 2 weeks out from the first test, I've got no doubt that that's what I would do. I would ring fence my best players, and then finish them off, and then make sure they get 2 weeks to prepare for a test match.
Okay, any more questions, gentlemen?
Yeah. Sorry, Jake. Just looking at your bench, a couple of things. Can you just confirm that Gerard Steenekamp and Johan Krobel are fit and healthy? You're just resting them because they have played a hell of a lot of rugby lately.
Yeah.
And Clinton Swart, has he now been released?
Yeah, so Clinton Swart's been released. He's going to join a Japanese club, Yamaha. And we're in the process of signing, I won't announce, but we're signing some backs, which I'm sure we'll announce soon. They've joined us. I mean, they signed their contracts. I just want to make sure we do it properly. But we have signed some centres and outside backs, and they will obviously they're now with us. So the risk of having him for another 3 weeks or 2 weeks and he gets injured, obviously we carry that financial risk or that insurance risk, Ken. So he's been released, done really well for us, and been really good team guy for us. And then Gerard Steenekamp's getting married next week, I think, next week. So so he's got other things on his mind. He's got to get right. He's played a lot of rugby. And Grobbie says, as I said, he's played literally 70, kept him on the field for as long as possible. And I just thought that this week, going into the Free State next week and then a short turnaround into the British Lions, we've got to make sure that we look after him as well.
Okay.
Just finally, Jake, the Pumas, they were very physical against the Lions and pulled off a great win there. What do you expect from them tomorrow?
Well, Ashfaq, I mean, the one thing they seem to do against us is they love playing against the Bulls. Jimmy comes from this area. He's got a little resort outside here. They stay there tonight. They braai. They, you hear all the Bull stories. I mean, I know, spoke to Jimmy about it. So they'll be up for it. And like you're right, they're going to high now. They got 5 points against the Lions. And look what the Lions did last night against Province. So, I mean, we know it's going to be an uphill battle. It always is against the Pumas. As I said, a lot of those boys and those players live close to here, and they commute from here almost into Nelspruit to go and play for the Pumas. But it's a challenge for us, Ashfaq. It's and I stress again what I told you earlier. It's not all or nothing tomorrow. I mean, there's a long way in this Currie Cup. We just got to make sure that we learn from what we learned last week. And hopefully we take that intensity and that pace and that learning that we did into the next game. Because I think that's what supporters and coaches and everyone are expecting us to have a little bit of a rebound and expecting us to have a bit of a reaction. Because, you heard our captain after the game, we were a little bit embarrassed by that showing, and that's not who we want to be. So let's hope that we get it right tomorrow.
Final question, please.
Anything else, guys? Happy?